Hello, welcome to the Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and today I'm joined by a legend on Stream Street Day 14, Mr. Adam Burt from the Heralds of War. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, mate. I'm doing very well.
Good. I can't wait to talk to you today. We've got a fun subject for today. I also can't wait to generally talk to you because I imagine there's going to be some stingers and burns coming my way. Adam, Adam.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay. A big fan of Adam, and we'll talk about the Heralds of War and Clinto and a bunch of other stuff in a minute. I just want to say a big thank you to anyone who's joined us live on this Monday for Stream Street Day 14, the hunker in the bunker with your chunker. I'm getting bigger as time goes on, I'm not going to lie. That one was just for Val, I want you to know. And if you listen to the podcast, please stay hydrated, stay well, stay safe, wash your hands, and thank you to anyone on the Wargamer Patreon who supports us and helps us do shows. So big love to you. And if you are listening to this live or you're watching this back or the podcast, don't forget me and Nathan will be live tonight, Monday, 7 p.m. UK GMT time. Our clocks have changed in the UK, so all of the times are a little bit weird now. Do your clocks move, Adam? Do you have daylight?
Yeah, they move at about one, like, you know, every hour they probably turn once.
Oh fuck! Okay.
Like, do you mean move around the house, or you mean like daylight savings?
I mean daylight savings. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I think this Sunday coming is we gain an hour, so we all get an extra hour sleep in.
Why do they happen at different times around the world? Why is ours different to yours?
But they happen at different times in Australia.
Fuck, do they?
Yeah. The states don't even line up. And some states don't even have daylight savings. So, like, if you go to... Yeah. If you're in Victoria or New South Wales, there's daylight savings. Yeah. But if you go to Queensland or Western Australia, there isn't, right? So you can be in, like, Perth, which is the most isolated city in the world, and in the middle of summer, the sun comes up there at, like, 4:30 in the morning. Because they refuse to have daylight savings because, you know, when they thought about introducing it, there was this huge scare campaign that it'll confuse the cows.
What?
Like the cows won't know what time they have to get milk.
No one said it's going to scare the cows.
Yeah. And there was a thing there about how it will fade your curtains. All these weird things. And Queensland doesn't have it either.
Feature curtains. Right. Okay.
Yeah. I kid you not. Like, mate, we're talking about Western Australia. We're talking about a state that literally declared war on emus and lost. So
more on that later. That's one of my favourite stories. I can see a whole bunch of people who've just joined us in the chat. I want to say a big thank you, but also I can't seem to see the chat at the minute. It seems that I just offline. I told you. Oh no, it's back. It's back. Fuck! It seems to be being a bit ropey today. Whatever's going on with Restream, and also please, everyone, don't forget Carol Baskin more than likely killed her husband. It's really important.
I finished that tonight. I finished watching.
How was it?
Oh, just I've never seen. It's basically a documentary about horrific people. There is not a single good person on that documentary.
I'm not sure the keeper that lost their arm seemed okay.
Yeah, John, I'll pay that, because even at the end, she was the first one to say, do you know what? And not through any point in any of this did anyone actually care about the animals. And you're like, yep, do you know what? You've just made a really good point.
Yeah. Someone also pointed out that all of the likable and nice characters all had like limbs missing, and I was like, ah!
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I will stop talking about it though, because this isn't the Tiger King Appreciation Show, or is it?
No, it's not.
That's the real.
Oh well.
Well.
That is our theme for the day.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I want to get that mullet. Yeah. I just want you to know that. Joel McGrath in the chat says, look, it's the legend, Mr. Adam Burt. We're watching later this week.
Hi, Joel.
Chuckle Buddy, I see you. Scrivo, how are you? Diadrin, big love to you. Desert Sketch, how's things? Chris, Tristan, I see you all. Thanks for being here. I also saw Jimmy as well in the chat. So thanks, everyone, for joining live. I hope you're all well. Let me know how you are. Don't forget, you can throw some images in this in the Discord chat if you want, and that'll pop up on the screen. I might rejig how the screen looks at some point this week. But today we're going to find out about someone who makes me laugh a lot, Mr. Adam Burt. So introduce yourself. Who are you? How are you? Where are you from?
So my name is Adam Burt, and originally I'm from Melbourne, big town, down in the south of southern coast of Australia. But I currently reside in Albury Wodonga, and that is a real place. Like Albury Wodonga is actually it's two cities either side of the river on the border of Victoria and New South Wales, and I've been living here now for 5 years. And when I moved up here, I didn't know a lot of people. The valley part.
Is that not right? Didn't you guys?
No, there is no.
Didn't you guys have a flood and it like wiped out the valley high street, or is that not right? Was that talking to?
Nah, look, flood's a big word. we do like to get our summer storms. But no one got wiped out. That was not us.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, I apologise. Please continue.
No, no, that's certainly not us. Because there probably were some people who were like, affected by natural disasters somewhere in Australia, and I'm there going, yeah, well, my carpet tiles got a bit damp in my back room, whilst their house got washed away or something, and I don't know, that might not be right. But I've been a Warhammerer since I was in year 9, and I was a really uncool kid at school, and I saw a guy one day with a magazine, a White Dwarf magazine. I thought, you know what? I reckon I could be even uncooler. And I looked at the stuff that was in the White Dwarf. I thought that looks pretty awesome. And it was just at that time that Games Workshop was actually launching in Australia. They just opened up the city store, and we sort of went from there. And I went down to my local store and was accosted by this guy in a red shirt, and was concerned that that was the normal. A little bit taken aback with that, but
what, him?
Yeah, I bought myself
the red shirt.
Yeah, he was a weird cat.
So some people don't remember that time. It might be nice reminiscing about red shirts. Cause I've heard some tales. What they were the store clerks, right?
I'm 15 and I've just walked into the store with my mum, who's driven me down to the shopping centre. And literally a guy launches at me and goes like, "Hey, dude," and then asks me a question. I have no idea what he is talking about, but basically it's a question of, option A or option B. And I'm like, A? And then he just turns around and starts like ragging on some other guy. And I had no idea what was going on. And as a 15-year-old, I'm just like, what is this place? What is going on here? And yeah, that was my introduction to Games Workshop. And very early on, like that was the norm. Like that was what staff were encouraged to do, like be really over the top, exuberant, and just, really sort of out there. And I think it certainly reinforced a lot of the reputations that I think might have occurred around wargaming in the mid-90s. Anyway, that didn't stop me, and so I bought a paint set.
Didn't stop you. I think it's a bit like church, right? You walk in, you meet the creepy priest, and you think, nah, I've already decided I'm committing to this. I've walked in.
If you've walked in the door, you have already made that decision.
I agree.
Like that's, it wouldn't really matter from there. So yeah, and like Wood Elves were my jam.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I broke from, that was breaking from the tradition. Like all of my friends at high school, like they all had 40K. Like they were all second edition 40K, Space Marines, Chaos, that sort of thing. And I was like, no, I prefer the Warhammer guys more. Which meant that I had no one to play with, which was okay because Games Workshop had just started, so I had a place I could play. So I did that for a couple of years and then ended up getting a job as a casual for Games Workshop.
Whilst I was at school. You became a red shirt?
Well, yeah, I became a casual across 2 of the stores, and ended up working casually for Games Workshop for nearly 6 years, as I sort of finished high school and then went through uni. And the friendships that I made working for Games Workshop, they are still my best mates to today. Travis, who I do the Heralds of War with, he and I met as 16-year-olds at Games Workshop Ringwood.
Cute.
Back in 1997.
Oh, wow. Wow.
90. Yeah.
You've aged so well. You look great.
Thank you. It's the children. They keep me young. They keep my humour at about.
Considering what's going on in the chat right now, 14, that's a hilarious sentence to say. Also, Jimmy has just pointed out that red shirts. When you join Big Cat Rescue, the first rank that you get is the red shirt.
I think Games Workshop has a case there. That's obviously their IP that's been stolen, their training manual. If she makes them learn the 10 Commandments off by heart, then that's going to be it.
Yeah, that's the future.
Because that used to be the test. Like if you're a good employee if you could remember the 10 Commandments off by heart of the training manual.
What were the 10? Can you still remember them?
Oh, I don't know. I never got the training. I was a casual.
Oh, damn it.
Ah, man. Yeah, jeez.
Oh, damn.
There was great segregation back there. I mean, I'm not going to say that I know like living under Jim Crow, but I understand what it means to be sort of pushed off to the side. Because there was a huge demarcation between the full-timers who were seen as these elite people and the casuals who were seen as the shit kickers who had to run all the games and do everything else.
Oh, wow. That's pretty.
But it was a great job. Don't get me wrong. I loved what I did. Like, as far as part-time jobs go, like it beats flipping burgers 8 days a week.
Because that was my first job. Like my very first job ever was working at McDonald's, and I to this date say one of the best jobs I ever had. I'd never do it again, but like for formative jobs. Understand, like it's a little maybe probably different working at Games Workshop, but at McDonald's the life lesson I learned very comfortably was that there is no one, not a soul, not anyone on earth who thinks that they aren't better than a Games Workshop employee. No, not Games Workshop, sorry, a McDonald's employee. Like everyone walks in and is like, I'm better than this guy selling me a burger. Like, and that's not true because you had some really nice customers, but it really gave me a good grounding on human beings and was like, do you know what? Treat everyone, no matter what job they're doing, as well as you can. See the person behind the job, and also it made your work super hard. So I really enjoyed that.
Yep. Oh, I mean, before I worked for Games Workshop, I did a year for Hungry Jack's, which for all the Australians out there, that is what Burger King is called in Australia.
Yeah,
it's called. Yeah.
It's called Hungry Jack's. I saw that when I was there. I was super impressed. I was like, let's go to Hungry Jack's. And everyone was like, nah, it's just Burger King. Stop it, Rob. I was like, okay. Yeah. Someone, Herman History in the chat has also just put the 10 Commandments. We know them now. Acknowledge all people who enter the store. Number 1. Be aware of people and their behavior in the store. Be aware? What? Show enthusiasm and be cheerful. Good. Be attentive and listen carefully to customer needs. Promote the hobby. Establish a rapport with the customer, display an in-depth knowledge of the company product, maintain high standards of personal hygiene and appearance, ask questions which obtain the best answers concerning customer needs, show courtesy. Who was courtesy? And it was like a picture?
That was behind every counter was a picture of courtesy.
They just show that and it's all good. So you went from being a red shirt and working at a great job and your newfound love. Did you play competitively or like what was it that most inspired you in those early years?
I went to one tournament in all of my time working for Games Workshop. Back in the old days, the old GTs, like early 2000s, and I went to the Melbourne GT and it would have been 6th edition Warhammer, and I had an Empire army. And I did all right. Like I finished 11th. I'd never been to a tournament before. I was pretty happy with how I ended up going. But I don't know that the fantasy tournament scene back then was certainly not my jam. I just liked rolling dice and playing with my mates probably a bit more than the sort of more competitive tournament scene back then. And I played a lot of cricket, so very rarely did I have weekends free where I could just go on because for most of it, I was, for 8 months of the year, I was playing cricket on either the Saturday or the Sunday or both.
Is that where you and Sam Morgan fell in love? Just over the wickets?
That's where Sam fell in love with me. I didn't fall in love with Sam until more recently. But apparently Sam fell in love with me back in the early 2000s at Games Workshop Ringwood. But yeah, that's and then finished uni, stopped working for Games Workshop, started teaching, but kept sort of the hobby going because of all these great friends that I'd made whilst working for Games Workshop, because we all stayed in the hobby. And the only time I reckon I had a hobby break was when I took a year off from work and backpacked around the world for a year. I lived over in London for about 4 months.
Cool.
Lived in Tooting, and did a bit of teaching and did some more traveling, and came back and pretty much jumped straight back into the hobby, which is because a lot of people normally have a story of, and then I discovered girls and stopped hobbying for 5 years and just had chicks everywhere. That wasn't me, man.
That wasn't you. You just didn't want to live that life.
Yeah.
You had you were on your own journey.
Look, hey, if you can put up with me playing with toy soldiers, then great. And if you can't, then guess what?
You're out.
You're not the girl for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very comfortable with that. I am who I am and you are who you are. And if that doesn't work out, then that's fine. I'm not willing to compromise on that. And you shouldn't be willing to compromise either.
Yeah. Agreed.
Is what I would expect of her. And so luckily now, my wife, she's fantastic. She thinks everything I do is amazing, which helps because I spend a lot of time hobbying.
That's lovely. That's really really
and
nice
then when
to hear
Age of
that.
Sigmar dropped,
I also think that's nice just for people to hear. Just nice for people to hear. But that it's possible and that's super okay. Good.
Absolutely.
Just before we move on, and I hear more about you, I just want to say hello to everyone in the chat who's saying hi. I see James Powell, the merch got in the chat. It's the Adneth Deepkin wreck now. I'm not sure what that means. Hi, Ironside. Hello. Chucklebutt, throwing some shade at some employees he's met, which is fun. And then James is bored inside. And then Jimmy says, those types, they're all having a chat. All have a chat amongst yourselves. I'm going to listen to Adam talk. And I also can't type to you because the thing seems to be broken. So keep chatting. And I'm just going to keep listening to Adam because he makes me laugh and I like listening to him. Sorry. So you came back from travelling. You stayed in the hobby. Did you start?
Yeah. It was
after you.
And was mostly just doing it for hobby purposes of an evening. Got back into teaching, and when I got back from overseas, I sort of got a bit higher up in leadership in teaching, head of school or head of senior school, that sort of stuff. And had a couple of years which were just nearly walked away from the job, because it was just stressful as, had a number of occasions where I'd just go home and just wouldn't sleep because you'd be thinking about the job and stuff like that. And that's probably common across a lot of jobs where people are dealing with, high stress situations. And just got back into painting for an hour or two each night to just clear the head a bit. It gave me something to focus on, took my mind off stuff and just broke a lot of those sort of negative thought cycles. And that was great, and it was just hobby. But then when 8th edition hit, all of my friends got back into Warhammer, and so we jumped into that and played a lot of casual games. And then as that sort of rolled over into Age of Sigmar, I then kept playing Age of Sigmar, and that coincided with moving up to Albury. And not knowing many people up here, that sort of became my way to sort of socialise a bit more, because the only people I did know were the Wargamers up here. Guys like Jesse Perkins, the Mayor of Dubbo, Matt Tyrrell, current Australian Master. And we started playing fairly regularly. And I'd just go to tournaments on weekends because my lovely wife back then was working hospitality, so she'd be working all weekends. And I'd want to play more Warhammer. So I'd travel to, 2-3 hours to play tournaments, or even just for if it was a really big gaming day, I'd travel for that. play Warhammer for 10 hours, drive back home, and get back home at sort of 1 a.m.
That's fantastic. Yeah, because you guys, the one thing that I've learned from traveling all around and meeting everyone all across the world is you Aussies drive so far for compared to the UK. We're such cowards. So it's like, oh, it's an hour away. I'll have to book a day off. I'll have to organise someone to make sure that we've got enough food in. Pack 8 bottles of water in the car. It's so far, and you guys are like, yeah, that's just to the shop or something. I am enjoying everyone in the chat deciding who on the Honest Wargamer crew would be the different members of the Tiger King show. Don't forget it is real life, and Carol Baskin did murder her husband. Just might be. Hello, welcome to the
Allegedly, you are so gonna get sued.
Allegedly, sorry, allegedly with the finger. I think. Let me just talk to my lawyers. Yeah, no, allegedly. That's what you meant to say. So yeah, good group of guys up there. Like you met Matt Tyrrell, you mentioned obviously.
Great.
Yeah, great group of guys.
Yeah.
And Jimmy has just posted in our Discord that meme I sent you earlier, Adam, the one that fucked me off loads, where the elves. So this, we'll talk about your competitive career in Age of Sigmar in a minute. Just what's your reaction?
Yeah, sure.
What's your reaction to the cow elves this weekend?
So I really liked the giant cow with the big hammer.
Mm-hmm.
He was really cool. And I liked the other elves that had the big hammers, but I just don't like that helmet aesthetic where they would have to have the neck of Mike Tyson to be able to do anything other than stand perfectly still with that thing on top of their head. If you ever gone out and you're like, I reckon that guy plays professional rugby because he just walks like this, like he's got no neck because it just goes chin, lat muscles, pecs, like that's it. That would be those high elves, or that would be those Lumineth realm
the
lords.
Teclis Longhorns.
Yeah,
that's their team. Yeah.
Go Longhorns.
Go Longhorns.
Yeah, that's the signal they use in Texas for the Longhorns. Go Longhorns.
Go Longhorns. I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of Irish guys who I travelled with, they spent some time in Texas and they went to a Longhorns game, and 3-4 times a day they would just go Longhorns. Didn't matter how irrelevant it was. Like that would be.
That's just what they would say.
They'd be in church and the priest would say, "All right, it's time for the sign of peace. Turn to your person next to you, go Longhorns." Like that's yeah.
For me, I think they maybe have grown on me a little bit, specifically the Cow Mountains. But I am furious that of all of we already have a race that likes the cows, and that's the Chaos Dwarves. Like, that's our whole aesthetic, man. Like, we're all about it. We've even got cow units, and now we've got a bull centaur, and now the mountain goat men. So I am a little bit pissed, to be honest. I'm not happy about it at all. But some people, like Andrew in the chat, loves them. Powell says,
Can you stream a 3-player game of Beasts of Chaos featuring mostly Minotaurs and Gorgons and Cygors versus Chorfs, Chaos Dwarfs, versus Lumineth Cow Lords when they come out, and whoever wins gets the mantle of, ultimate cow of the mortal realms?
I absolutely can. No worries at all. That'll be fine. I'm all about it. Chuckabit says they ignore Chaos Dwarfs maybe because they're not real dwarves. I think that's a bit mean. And yeah, me and Gabe in the chat. All right, Gabe. We both think that they obviously are just posers. Elf posers. It doesn't make sense. What are they going to do next? Mine? They got hammers. Are they smiths? Are they doing smithery? That's a dwarf thing.
Well, how else do you think elves make armor?
Probably they probably knit it, if I'm honest. Yeah, right. That's what I reckon. Yeah. some magical knitting.
Fair. Yeah.
So you got into competitive Age of Sigmar at a certain point.
Yeah.
How early did you
Yeah.
guys
Like,
adopt it?
I remember sort of we had very deep discussions early on about which system we would use for points and that sort of stuff. And that was at about the time when there was, there was MoComp, there was the points that they'd just come up with for the South Coast GT. There was it was about 3 or 4 things floating around that all had positives or negatives associated with them, but at least gave you a framework to work within. And we generally used one of those. And then, then the General's Handbook dropped, and it just sort of slowly grew over a couple of years, and then it just seemed to go batshit crazy from the second year into the third year here, after sort of, there was that sort of more of a framework for your sort of competitive games.
Yeah, it really, really exploded. I think, but yes, a good time to be around during the wild times. A bit like hanging out on Joe Exotic's farm.
Oh, yeah. If I'd have turned up to a tournament in the early times, and a guy's like, "Yeah, this is my army. I've converted it up. It's nothing but tigers," and and he had like his pet tiger there with him on the tabletop, and he'd be like, "Yeah, they only cost 3 points each, so I've got 700 of them." I'd be like, "Okay,
yeah, this is
cool.
This is where we're at.
That must be a thing."
Yeah, that must be a thing. This is where we currently are at. Also, if I growl halfway through, I get rerolls, which is yes, great fun. Okay, so but you ended up doing fairly well at some events. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I did well. I did well early on. It probably took me a little bit of time to just get used to the whole tournament vibe. In regards to even just things like getting used to all of the missions that you can play and knowing how to win them, and stuff like that. But so the first year of the sort of rankings here, I qualified for Masters but couldn't make it. Because they used to be right at the end of the school year, when there was report writing and conferences and all sorts of stuff that make it really hard when you're living in a regional area like Albury Wodonga is to travel to Brisbane. It's like 2 plane flights and does require 2 days off work. Like you just can't get there otherwise. And so I had to pull out of that, or had to not accept the invite. But the next year I went, I qualified again, and went along as the second ranked player in Australia, where I then promptly lost my first game.
Nice.
And drew possibly the worst scenario and the army I matched up worst with, like literally game 1, bang, there it is, and got smashed by Gemma Shepherd. So well done, Gemma. You well and truly stuffed me up that game. And thwarted.
Damn it. Good word.
But now I just that was the last year of like super competitive, going to a lot of tournaments. And now it's probably just more of a case of I go to CanCon every year, and we'll go to maybe 1 or 2 others to really sort of, more to support either individuals in the community that are trying to start off an event. And you sort of, when I used to be on when Heralds was still recording regularly, we'd advertise that we're going, or we'd say and put a bit of support behind it, or for events that are just a little bit different. And there was one coming up that I was really looking forward to in May that unfortunately is not going to go ahead now because of the damn Rona. And that would have been really cool. But I'm sure it'll get on. It'll come back eventually, and it's going to be a great time. And if we think that once all these bans and stuff lift, that things will be different. Like, imagine that first tournament that is scheduled after the restrictions are lifted in different countries around the world, and it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't even necessarily want to go and play. I just want to go see all my mates for like a good weekend. Just just start everything off again. I'll be like, fuck, missed all of you. Like, and then do another event like the week after. Be like, cool, we got this. Because that's going to be one of those things, I think, catching up with everyone who you would see fairly regularly at some events, and then just seeing how they all are. Yeah, okay. Well, that's a bunch of stuff. Also, you record the Heralds of War, or did record the Heralds of War, with both the famous Clinto and the man machine himself, Travis. I actually don't think there's anything Travis can't do.
No, he's a freak.
Yeah. He's
an absolute freak, and not just a freak. Like he when he does something, like he doesn't just do it half-assed. Like he will full on research how to do something, so that like however he is doing it, it is absolutely perfect, or as close to it as he can be. Like near enough is never good enough for him. Like when you looked at his Chaos, his Slaves to Darkness army that he made, the Cornate one on those ice bases. Like those ice bases were I think a 27-step process.
Wow.
That included like almost making the equivalent of Walter White's meth off Breaking Bad.
Yeah. He kind of looks like Walter White a little bit, but like in the later series.
Oh man, he was pouring it. He was breaking the shards. It had a blue tinge to it. Like, he was Heisenberg. He was the one who knocked.
He was. He 100% was.
Yeah. You're goddamn right. Like that's.
All right.
He just needed Jesse Pinkman to stand with him at tournaments. Be all like he rolls, gets a 6 on a charge, and he's just like, science, bitch, like something like that.
Time.
It'd just be cool.
Statistically, I should make this, but time. Boom, science, bitch.
Yeah, I think that'd be really great.
Yeah, I think it would be great too. So yeah, if you guys want to, you can still listen to the back catalogue of the Heralds of War. You go find it on theheraldswar.com. Is that correct?
Yep. We're still on the iTunes, still on SoundCloud. I think we were even on Spotify for a while. We were all over the shop, available in a lot of places, and it's all still up, all still hosted. Going back literally 4 years. Trav and I were only on the show for the last 2 and a bit years. But yeah, I mean, there's stuff going right back to, the first tournament that was run in Australia, and they reported on it because they all went along and stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That'd be really fun to listen to. I think actually those early days and on what it was like a little time machine. Big question though: did you guys actually stop making the podcast because you wanted to do that boy band thing where you break up, but then a year later you do the reunion tour just for the big hype numbers, ticket sales? Obviously, like it feels like that's very much in keeping with how you guys are as people. Is that correct?
It's 2 reasons.
Right.
There's 2 reasons, and I'll quash those rumors now. The first is that with Travis now having an extra child, that he's got a hell of a lot more on his plate now, between work and everything else, and he's mostly he's not a full-time stay-at-home dad, but he's a mostly stay-at-home dad, and he does a lot of the stuff there with the kids. So any sort of hobbying time that he gets is, he wants to put that into a hobby, not necessarily into having to read books for reviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the other one is that I wanted my own fucking solo career. Right? I'm sick of being stifled.
Yeah, exactly, Adam. You were like the creativity was stifled, right?
Yeah. I'm a peacock. You got to let me fly.
Have you come up with a name for your solo project yet, or is it just going to be called The Adam Burt Show?
Okay, so I haven't got a name for it yet, but I've already started writing it, because one of the things that I always wanted to do that we sort of it was, I'm not going to say that Clint wouldn't allow it, okay, but Clint wouldn't allow it. And what I always wanted to do was throw in these little sketches that sort of it's like they, if you put the mortal realms into our world, like what would it be like? And so we had things like the Slanesh dating advice radio show, where you call up and you get relationship advice from a Lord of Slanesh. We had ones where one I always wanted to do was a fake call-in show, where literally we record a whole Herald's episode where we do it like it's talkback radio,
right? And
people are calling in, but no one's actually calling in, and we are just impersonating people in the community and just taking the piss. But he didn't. So I've currently I'm about 15 minutes. I've got about 15 minutes of content for writing the first show. So it's basically just a heap of skits and things like that, which I'll do, and something I can just do in my spare time when I'm on the couch in front of the computer. On the couch in front of the telly. Tap away at a few things between doing emails and marking essays and stuff, and it's because the content's probably going to take a while to release, to sort of come up with. It might be one show a month, like it's certainly not going to be one a fortnight. I'd aim for one a month, and that it would be I'd get some people from the local area, do some voices. Get him in for some recording and sort of release it that way.
So going to listen to that.
Almost like the old Not the 9 o'clock news, where it's just like sketch comedy, but it's in radio format. So it's
we should get your people to talk to my people and see if we can make that a thing. Yeah, try and hook you up. I'll send that out to the world. That sounds like a fun thing.
Yeah.
To do. Dave Fraser, my guest today is Mr. Adam Burt. So thanks for being here. Adam's great, and has in a single sentence captured my heart this year at CanCon. I thought he was funny before, but then he got me, which is great. Chuckabutty says, based on that, I am in 100%. And then, yes, this is Jesse Perkins, mate. Is exactly who it is.
Yes. Yes,
that sounds great. I can't wait to hear about your solo career. Honestly, really fun. I'm really into that. Would like to like and subscribe.
Look, hopefully it's more Robbie Williams than Nick Lachey, but we'll see.
Who did do really well when they had their solo career?
Ronan Keating did well for a while.
He did, but life's a roller coaster, and then it got really bad. It went really wrong.
Yeah. It went real bad for him real quick. This Robbie Williams, he was in Take That, wasn't he?
The Queen herself, Queen Bee, Beyonce, did quite well, having left Destiny's Child. But Destiny's Child, obviously, were phenomenal. And as a DJ, when clubs were open and life was normal, I would more than often play Destiny's Child at least once, and it wouldn't be rare that I would do it twice. Not forgetting that I DJ'd in a alternative rock club. I would like that specified. Yeah. It would somewhere be between Fall Out Boy and Parkway Drive, would be say my name when no one is around you. Say, baby, I love you. Watching loads of goths dance to that is one of my favourite fucking things.
Yeah. And Timberlake would be the other one.
Oh, yeah, of course. Timberlake's,
I mean, NSYNC.
He did a really good... He started moving into country music recently, and I'm a bit of a sucker for country music. Obviously my most...
Do you have the Tiger King's albums?
Thank you so much. Yeah, of course I'm listening to the Tiger King music right now.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So more on that. I'm looking forward to that. I'll put links in the show notes so you can find. Yeah, put a pin in that. So we can find. Do I say that a lot? Shit. So Adam, you can find Adam and hear about it, and we'll bang on about it when it finally gets released. That'll be fun. So should we talk about what the main topic of our show was going to be, or kind of is meant to be about, maybe?
Yeah, let's. I think it'll be a great test of both our creativity and of the chat's creativity to see what people can come up with, because it was a hell of a lot of fun doing this for what I was going to be taking. My idea changed twice, so I think it'll be a good process.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really fun. So do you want to let us know what the premise of the chat we're going to have is?
So in May, there was going to be a narrative tournament down in Melbourne hosted by the Dwellers Below, who is a really old podcast from here. They were somewhat fossilized back in the day of Warhammer Fantasy. And then when Warhammer Fantasy finished, they got all crusty and petrified, and someone put them in a time capsule. But then a couple of years ago, someone stumbled across the time capsule, let them out, and they started recording again. And they put on a couple of tournaments. And what they were going to be doing in May was really cool. So it was going to be a narrative tournament that basically you took 1,500 points worth of thematic narrative army to, and then you had to come up with a Titan that was in your army, which would not be used throughout the whole tournament, but would come in at different times or at some stage. And the Titan, the guidelines for it, so it was a custom war scroll. You could come up with whatever the hell you wanted. And it was the guidelines for it, or the sort of the framework to work within, was that it had to be something big and something cool that was normally you would expect to pay sort of 500 points for if it was Age of Sigmar. So, you're looking at things that are as, slightly stronger than a Maw Crusher, or slightly better than a Stonehorn, like pretty powerful pieces. And that was the challenge that was thrown out, that whatever army you were bringing, whatever narrative force you were going to bring along, that you had to effectively come up with this custom model. And I was like, oh man, like not only is that something that I've got to think about, that is actually something that drives my choice as to what army I want to take. Because some things I think lend themselves to a much cooler sort of Titan-like model than others. And yeah, I thought that's what we'd do today. Let's go through some of the factions. What could you do as a Titan with some of the factions that exist in Age of Sigmar?
And I think it's also very on point, right? None of us would have picked out the large mountainous goatmen of the elves. That wouldn't have been something that we assumed would have been a thing. And so, yeah, no. And so it's kind of fun to go through that process and go for something that because it meant to be even slightly bigger than that, right? Like you said, larger than a Stonehorn, so kind of above monster level, or like grand monster. Yep. Maybe fitting into like Dreadsaurian range.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what, the Dreadsaurian's 5'10"?
Yeah.
Under the current book, so like that's how powerful you're sort of talking here. There, for instance, like I know Trav Cooper, he was basically converting a Greywater Fastness army before the Rona came and shut everything down, and it was going to be very steam tank heavy. But of course, because the Greywater Fastness is in and around a swamp, he's like, well, they wouldn't be able to take regular steam tanks. And so he was converting up all of his steam tanks to be like walkers.
Wow.
Right? So that they could go and walk through the swamps, but still be like Age of Sigmar steam tanks. Now, I know for a fact that the Titan he was working on was based off a Adeptus Titanicus Warlord Titan.
Yes.
And that it was going to be converted to be this Age of Sigmar style Greywater Fastness Cities of Sigmar Titan, and the custom war scroll he made for it was absolutely awesome.
Oh,
the thing was just a beast. Like I want to play it and get shot off the table by it because it was just really cool. It took rules from the steam tank and incorporated that with other rules from other, and it all just came together and was absolutely fantastic.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds really fun. I did something similar-ish once. We had to, in fact, actually, I'm wondering how accessible it is for me to show you guys. I'm not sure. I maybe have to run too far for me to find it. But I had to do something when I went to the Realms at War event. We had to make our own Titan, for the event, or a hunter. So I actually I made a chariot out of the leaves of a Sylvaneth Wildwood, and then that was the charioteer was a tree lord, and it was pulled by 2 carnosaurs. That was my. I'll find a picture in a bit, and I'll put it up on Twitter for everyone to see.
And it was on a base the size
just a
of...
night base.
Right.
Yeah, like an Imperial Night base. I don't know if it's in one of the boxes in it. There's a lot of stuff in here is the problem, so I probably can't find it. I'll have to find it out and put it up on Twitter. But yeah, that was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. Was it a real chariot? It wasn't, because it didn't have wheels, so it was more of a it was more gliding, or as I like to say, it was glading. Which was obviously terrible. So should we all as a group, me, Adam, and you guys, will go through some of the factions, and we'll come up with some titans for those factions, and then we maybe will run some sort of competition, or if you've got a good idea for a faction, then you can let us know. Maybe, Adam, you can come back if you could, if we get enough entrants, so you could message on this Wargamer Twitter. That's the way to do it. So if you follow us, we'll follow you back. Or tweet us and just say you haven't followed us back, and we'll do it. And then send us your ideas. And if we love them, we could do a show where we read them out or something. That could be fun.
Yeah. Like, hey, do you know what? Yeah. Maybe like any good cooking show, I could say, here's one I prepared earlier. And
okay, yeah, please do. If you let us know, I can try and find. Oh, nice.
So this was going to be the Abominable King, who's the Mountain Lord. So he's based off the Rogue Idol, and he's got a Stonehorn's head and a few other bits and pieces. I don't know how well that's showing up or anything, but he was going to be the Titan for my army, which consisted of 21 Yetis, and 2 Thunder Tusks. So it was going to be just a whole heap of frozen boys running across the table. And yeah, I thought, take elements of the Rogue Idol War Scroll, take elements of the Yeti War Scroll, maybe not a 6-inch pile-in, but that was sort of what I was heading towards.
It's very cool. So you're going to have it, we're going to make it like -1 to hit because it was cold, a classic cold thing.
Yeah, the old -1 to hitting combat, still with a lot of those avalanche-y kind of rules, except instead of it being about rocks, it's about like literally the avalanche because it's winter. Inspiring for the Yetis, like the Rogue Idol's inspiring for orcs and goblins in some way. That sort of a thing is where I'd go. It wouldn't have the 6-inch pile-in or the run and charge if it's within range of Thunder Tusk, because I don't think that would quite suit it.
Okay, no, I don't think it would either. I think you better. I think like some of these things being more like totemic as opposed to monstrous is probably a better way to go with them in an army or around. Because probably if they're so large, they might be uncontrollable. And Nikos in the chat is just showing us his Titan that he once produced, which is a Mega Dunga. If you guys, so that's in the Discord chat. If you guys want to check that out, I'll put the link. Into the I don't even know if someone else put the link into the normal chat, because I think this is busted. Yeah, it's busted. I can't do it, so you guys are gonna have to do it yourselves. Sorry about that. But yeah, the Dungadon showing the Dungling for scale is that's his version. All right, let's go for some factions and come up with some Titans, because this sounds really fun. So what would you do? Let's go for the poster boys, Stormcast. What could you do for a Titanic Stormcast? That's the real question.
I reckon you would have to go... So it's really easy. I think I found early on, I was like, I could do a really big chariot. And I think that's where my mind automatically goes, to some sort of large chariot style thing. But then I think, okay, if the Celestin Prime is like the big dude with wings and that sort of thing, could you do some sort of, almost like Golem-esque Stormcast that's not the Prime, but he is like this huge bronze statue?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, like
so a little bit like the Daughters of Cain, Avatar of Cain, that he's infused with the power of Sigmar, something like that, I think could work. That he's got some sort of lightning bolt attack from his sword. He'd have a very nice armor save. Throwing out buff pieces as well. What could you do Dracoth-wise?
Well, so I think some of the things, obviously, people talking about he could be on a very large tiger, which is something on a large tiger would be fun. But I think thinking around the theme of stars and Azir, which is one of those key bits, and obviously you got Star Drake, so Dracothian's relationship with Sigmar is something that isn't often talked about loads, but Sigmar wouldn't have been able to do anything had Dracothian not breathed life into the universe again. So there's that kind of Drake / star thing, which would be quite cool. The idea of a giant dragon, I mean, they've got the Star Drake, but ramping that up is a bit dull, isn't it? Truthfully.
Yeah.
So I do like the idea of that smithing. Someone has put a hammer with googly eyes. I think. Owen Jackson says a giant bolt of lightning with a Taurolon riding it. I really rate that. You could potentially have a chariot with maybe a couple of Taurolons at the front, and then some sort of charioteer, because they don't have anything like that. They don't have any kind of mechanized war machines as of yet.
That's the one I reckon. That's the other one I'd go for, where you've got obviously in Azir there are the the workshops and that sort of thing. And they obviously have some sort of weapons of war. So you could look at doing what's the name of the characters who buff war machines?
Oh, the Ordinators.
Yeah. So you could have your Lord Ordinators and some really cool artillery piece, tank style sort of a piece, whether it's an emplacement or something like that. I think that could be really, really cool. With a Lord Ordinator or with several Lord Ordinators on it that sort of control it, and that as it's got a degrading profile, so that as it cops wounds, it represents that Ordinators can't use certain weapons at a particular time. Part arcane technology, part just gigantic war machine. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. Chucklebutt has just said a Star Drake pulling a massive Death Star style twin tail comet is the big cow of Sigmar, because obviously the thing that we all have to be aware of now is there's Dracothian and there's all of the god beasts. We don't know if there's not a grander super being above them, the cow god, who is actually more important to the Age of Sigmar than we ever once realized. Maybe we don't know this yet, but maybe what the games designers, the rules designers, and the narrative background writers are trying to set us up for is, this kind of overarching story where the Age of Sigmar is inside the intestine of a giant cow.
Yeah, the divine bovine.
Did you just come up with that? That's great. The divine bovine. Someone has put a giant lightning elemental. I think that could be really fun. I like the idea of with the re-release of Final Fantasy VII coming soon. It did make me reminisce on how incredibly awesome it was the first time you got a new summon that you could use inside the game. I don't know if you ever played any of the Final Fantasy games.
All of my friends loved Final Fantasy VII, and not once did I play that game. It never really interested me.
Yeah, that's super fair. But one of the cool things is you would get a rare materia in Final Fantasy VII or other things in Final Fantasy VIII. But effectively, at a certain point of the game, you would be able to summon a monster to the battlefield, and it would take lots to do. And I know we obviously have endless spells, but I think summoning titans or these things could be really rad. But yeah, I think there's some great ideas for some Stormcast things there, an elemental, a chariot, a machinacious machine, or a giant golem. And honestly, for hobbying, there's some great ideas to kick off some stuff.
I'd love to see the lightning elemental, and it basically just reminds me of the animated Microsoft Word paperclip, where it's just a bolt of lightning with two googly eyes on it. It's like, I see you're trying to have a battle. Can I help?
Can I help?
just throws out suggestions. Like,
Yep, absolutely.
yeah. Are you sure you want to move within 18 inches of those flamers? Yeah, stuff like that.
That would be really good. And then also Eric has put, I think, another clever thing: reforge more races into Stormcast. So a Gargant Stormcast obviously would be rad. That would be cool. That would be fun. And then I guess they could do, says Mikey, a steampunk style exosuit akin to the Space Marines exosuits, make it more Hulk Buster armor, less baby carrier lol. They could do that. That could be fun.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that
like a Stormcast Dreadnought type thing, or like with the exo armor. I think that could be really cool. I saw a Penitent Engine was in the chat as well, because I love that idea of the evil side of the Stormcast, where it's like, they're not all just really good guys. That they get some of those mutant chaos worshipping scum, and instead of just smashing their heads in with a hammer, they convert them somehow and punish them by putting him in these machines. I reckon that could be really cool.
Yes, a Minotaur Stormcast. Yes. Or a Centaur Stormcast would be pretty rad. That would be pretty rad. Yeah, okay. So I think some good ideas for Stormcast there. That's really fun.
I just had to think back to that episode of The Simpsons where he goes to the factory of Red Tick beer, and they're like, needs more dog. And as the dogs are swimming around the beer vat, the Games Workshop, they're just like, needs more cow. And as they're just sculpting more cows into the game.
Yeah, maybe one of them is like, and again, it doesn't matter which side of the argument you're on here, or even if there is an argument, it doesn't matter. But maybe one of them is either very pro-vegetarian or very anti-vegetarian. Yeah, and he's just like, oh, you don't want cows in this fucking world? I am going to make them every fucking where you go. I am fed up of this. Or, interestingly, mad cow disease was something that happened several years ago. And it was very similar to COVID in that it was a prion, I think. And so we could potentially be seeing the ramifications of that, where one of the sculptors, and I hope this isn't true, obviously, but one of the sculptors is slowly succumbing to the madness of mad cow disease, which, and I know nothing about this medically, I assume makes you think you're a cow. That's what I think it is.
The other one that I think you could do is you could remove all of the cow iconography and replace it with soya beans and just tell your opponent that it still tastes like cow. It's like fake cow. Right? Like vegan sausages. Like, just don't call them sausages. Just call them vegan, whatever you want. Like, it doesn't matter.
Vegan cylinders.
You don't have to market it that way. You're fake vegan cylinders.
As someone, by the way, who...
Would you like seconds? Oh, no, I couldn't possibly.
Just to let you know, last night I made leek potato soup, and I also cooked up some, I think you would call them vegan spheres at this stage. I'll leave that to your imagination, what the hell one of those would be. Put them in. Vegan sphere? Can I offer you? Anyway, soy cast Eternals.
That sounds like something you would... Yeah, soy cast Eternals.
The idea of a Stormcast Dreadnought instead of a corpse on life support is an unforged soul if a fallen Stormcast put inside of a mech. It's a really cool idea, though. Honestly, big fan. Okay, let's go for another one. I think the chat could jump in there, but one of the things I saw that was really cool was someone suggested Tzeentch, because I saw someone suggest 9 giant discs, and because the discs are actually demons, aren't they? Like, they're actual creatures of magic. So, and Tzeentch obviously being famous for magic, they build the Silver Towers. They also have a cow. Fuck, they've got the Ogroid Thermitage.
Yes.
What is happening?
They do.
Silver hats on.
It's a cowspiracy.
It's a cowspiracy. Great movie. Should watch. So something like that. Now I just want a really giant fucking Tzeentch bull, the size of a mountain, but obviously not that, I think.
Well, if it's Tzeentch, it's probably going to shoot, and then you can just play cows with guns, like every time you play your opponent.
Yeah. Just cows with guns.
Yeah. Are you aware of that song?
No.
You're not aware of Cows with
No, exactly.
Guns?
Please put a link in the
Oh,
chat for
Rob,
everyone.
Rob, can someone put a link to Cows with Guns in the chat? Because it will.
See,
Late 90s.
never heard it. Never heard it. It's the big
Oh,
Australian outputs that I'm a fan of musically. Obviously, Partway Drive, and I'm also a huge fan of a band called The Beards, an Australian institution. I don't know if you've heard of The Beards. No, no, they've got like 8 albums, maybe 6 albums. Every song on every album is about beards, and you would think that would get boring. Nope, wrong.
no.
Fantastic time. You'll have a great time. Oh, okay. Dexamon, thanks very much. We are discussing something, but the Seraphon FAQ just dropped. Interesting news. And again, if someone could put a link in the chat for me, I'll go find it in a minute. Okay, so Zinch. We were talking Zinch and Giant Titans for Zinch. That would be fun.
Yes. Well, Ash McEwen was taking Zench, and I saw like he shared his stuff, and he had made, he'd gotten a Dark Fantastic Mills terrain piece, and he'd converted that to be on a Perspex flying stand, and he had the Silver Tower.
Wow. Okay, that's really cool.
It looked great.
That looks really great. I really like Dave Fraser's idea in flipping the idea on its head. For Zinch, it should be the smallest and most insignificant looking familiar thing, but it's the most powerful wizard in the game, and it basically just picks up your army and throws it across every other board in the room, and other people then have to play a game with you included, so you now have 30 opponents at the same time.
The other one is that I like something like that would be perfect.
Yep.
With the other one being like that you could just consider your 9 discs of Zench, and in your first turn you get to summon 90 pink horrors for free, and like I think that'd be a great, a really good Titan. It's just it's the discs with. And then it's just a giant movement tray with 270 brimstone horrors on it.
I really like that idea. I think that's fun. I think I really like the idea of there being a giant disc. Maybe it's like a like with a silver tower on, and they cast spells from it. I think that's really fun. Something organic and alive, though. I think again a giant fire demon is something that they could very comfortably summon, and that would be pretty cool. I like the idea of kind of doing a croak thing where it's a Lord of Change, but it's so powerful, or it's like an almost like a an aspect of Zinch where it's just made of fire or magical flames, and it's just this even bigger than an exalted Greater Demon, just this monster. I suppose that's a bit boring though. It's just this current thing but bigger. Boring.
I'd even like to see people delve back into the old world, like your Egram Van Horseman.
Nice.
Or your Aecold Hellbrass. Someone like that's just reimagined in Age of Sigmar. I think that could be really cool. Certainly, like, especially with some of the kits that exist now. Like, you imagine a 2-headed Stardrake with a Chaos Lord on the back that's Egram Van Horseman.
Yes. That's really cool.
Like, that would just be... it's beyond my hobby skills, but someone could do it, I'm sure.
I really like the idea of a Nurgle Stardrake as well. Like at some point, someone doing that, because that's intensely cool, but also way beyond my hobby skills. Similarly, yeah. There we go.
Definitely.
Goodbye to Winner Dave, whose wife is making him go for a walk. Imagine that. How's your day going? Yeah, wife's made me leave for a walk. Is there a faction that you would like to do, or Twitch chat that you would like to talk about? We'll do 2 more. And then we'll call it, because otherwise there's just too many. But it'd be fun to come back and revisit this if you guys do one at home, and we could come back with some of the ideas that we come up with as well. Flesh Eater Courts. Okay, that's an interesting one. So they think that they're good guys. They think that they're knights of the realm riding mighty steeds. And they're Bretonnian all but name. They're Bretonnian thought, but not in scape. What would that look like? A giant. I like the idea of. Did you ever pick up the Monsters Arcana back in the day? And they had the the bone giant. It was, but I suppose that's more Oceanic Bone Reapers. It was just a giant. It was just giant basically, but it was the hull of it was made from a ship, the middle part, and then the rest was bones, and it was held together, and a necromancer built it up. That was super cool. That would be fun. I want something that eats like a giant maw, but I don't really know what it would be. Got any thoughts?
Yeah, like I don't know how you do it, and I don't know how you. But I would love to see basically like this giant combine harvester that it's just rolls along and shoots all of the stuff off to the side into like a big hopper, that and prepares it for for food time. Instead of harvesting wheat, it's the corpses of all the stuff that's dead on the battlefield. I don't know who'd be driving it, but something like that perhaps they imagine it as some great chariot, but it's actually just this machine of death that's sort of rolling across the battlefield. Maybe it's a little bit too Skaven-esque, a little bit too machiney, for that sort of Bretonian vibe.
What if we did? That's a great point from Nubgun in the chat. What if we went for a huge elemental spirit it's meant to be the queen, the lady of the lake, but it's not, and it's some sort of like monstrous, like you don't want to go like banshee route, but almost that kind of like necro queen who is
and with like the big Mongol-esque extended jaw that just can drop down and be like I think that could be really cool.
That can give bonuses to either bravery or debuff bravery in a large area. That would be really fun, I think, and be inspiring as well. It's got to be inspiring for all of the flesh eater courts around them, because the lady of the lake is fighting with them. That's really fun.
For sure.
Yeah. That would be really fun. Owen Jackson says a giant Frankenstein's monster-style creature made up from loads of bodies stitched together, who all think they're having a big hug. Oh, gross.
That would be pretty cool, like a large golem-esque like creature that's literally just made of corpses.
That would.
Not like a full zombie giant, but it works like a giant, looks like a giant, the size of a giant, but made of dead people.
Yeah, made of dead people. That's creepy and weird. Yeah, stitched together. That's gross. I really like the idea of that. That's fun. Bretonia, the only option could be the return of the most horrendous powerhouse. That was the army of old. The mighty, the terrifying, the inspirational, a horse. Giant horse.
Oh, there you go. Flesh Eater Court's Trojan horse. It's just a horse. They leave it there, and then a hyper ghouls spill out of it at some point in the battle. The other one being, let's go back to the Bretonians, some sort of Pegasus Knight. So it's, they're flesh eaters of some sort that's actually riding some sort of winged nightmare-esque steed.
Yeah. Listen, even just talking about these things makes you think when they go back to do some of these ranges, it's going to be so exciting. Like if you think about Flesh Eater Courts, which is really just it's got one new model it's ever had since Age of Sigmar was released. When they go back to approach Flesh Eater Courts and think, right, they like when they reimagine Demigryph Knights, or they reimagine the lady characters we talk about, or the Green Knight or something like that, reimagine them into the Flesh Eater Courts. Honestly, I can't wait for that. I think it will be. I know for a fact that obviously they'll all now be riding cows. That'll be the key focus.
Correct.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. The cows who think they're horses.
Rob, don't laugh, please. That's a very serious.
The divine bovine
piece of the Age of Sigmar lore.
Yeah, I agree. All right, that's a good one. I'm into those. One last one. Adam, as the guest, you get to choose if there's one you'd like to explore. Otherwise, we'll take you.
Well, we're gonna go one of the most characterful races, because we've done Death, we've done Chaos, we've done Order. Gloomspite Gits.
So.
An even bigger squig.
Yeah, of course. I always loved the Squig Gobber because it was a squig that spat out tinier squigs, And I honestly can't think of
Yeah.
anything much funnier than that, unless it gets more giant. But
So you want Squig Voltron.
yeah, yeah, that was. Yeah, I'm into that.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Squig Power Rangers.
Yeah,
You paint a blue one, you paint a green one, you paint a yellow one, and they all go together and boom.
just a giant. Yeah, just creates a giant monster squig. But beyond that, I
Yeah.
think that what about a squig dirigible? That's the squig is actually the balloon, and then
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
and then goblins
Yeah.
are hiding from it, and then they are like raining
Oh
down
man.
magic.
You're pushing fanatics out the bloody portholes
Nice, they're bombs.
onto your opponent's lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You got like your fanatic launch ramp so that they just lower the doors at the back of the blimp and the fanatics just start spinning until they just drop out the back and straight into the enemy lines.
yeah. I'm really into that. That sounds really fun. Absolutely, yeah. Dropping little mushroom bombs could be cool. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You'd get a rule where they can, like, if you don't have Scragrot, like, they can grab the Bad Moon and pull it back to where they need it because they're in the dirigible. Like they can somehow, they're chasing the Bad Moon or something like that.
yes, I'm into that loads. Absolutely, a trog riding a squig like a space hopper. That would be fun. I could totally see that. I also, at some point, would like to see like a Trogoth king. I know we have Trog bosses, like, and I'm into that, but I want to see like a lumbering mountain
You
Trogoth.
basically feel that they need a rigid system of government, some sort of hierarchy that would allow
Well,
them to prosper more as a society.
Well, I want there obviously to be a Trogoth parliament, but just a representative
Yeah.
head of state. It doesn't really have to have any actual
Yeah.
impact on the running day to day. Just big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And then when you turn up to the tournament, you can hand your opponent your Trogoth Magna Carta, which goes to put the power back into the hands of the people.
Trog, who is currently in the chat, says, hello. He's very excited about this. Goblin Sky Pirates with Squigs as balloons is some of the suggestion. Wandering into Warcraft territory there. I think we might well be. Take inspiration from 40k. It's got a grot version of a 40k knight made out of wood and rope and controlled by grots. Yeah, that's the. They've got grot tanks and stuff, which should be very fun. Turns out the Gloomspite terrain is a bit actually a rogue idol. Bit is actually a rogue. The Gloomspite terrain bit is actually a rogue idol. Oh, but it's only the head. Maybe it's like a hat of a rogue idol, and then something even bigger gets up, and then the cave. Maybe they live inside of a giant monster, and they live inside it, and that's the cave. Or the cave is maybe he's bent over, and the cave is his butthole. And it's just.
I'd just love to see a giant Bad Moon with legs, except every time I think of it, I'd just be thinking that, of Brian, a Family Guy, yelling, it's peanut butter jelly time, peanut butter jelly, just dressed as that banana.
Yeah, I'm into that. That's great.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of maybe like this is again not the going along the Titan version, but I like the idea of there being a bunch of trogs, and what they do is they throw fanatics. Now you've got me into this idea that like they launch them, which would be really fun, and just having like an archery squad of Trogoths, but they throw fanatics is a super weird and super fun idea, which would be good. The eye on that terrain piece keeps winking at me. Wait, that isn't an eye.
Stormcast Lord Castellan goes up to it with his lantern, like wondering what's going on, and then the pupil shrinks like in Jurassic Park.
Oh my god. We gotta get out of here. Danger. This has been really fun, and I've really enjoyed it. Do you have a quick 5 minutes to talk about the Seraphon Battletome errata? Do you want to quickly chat about that?
Yeah, I'll need to bring it up.
Someone's put it in the chat. If you guys want to go and look out there, some of you guys have already talked about this a little bit. I saw Dexamon and I saw Helgamar in the chat. But obviously, if you guys want to talk to me and Adam to come back and talk about more of this in the future, or you've got some ideas, I want to hear them. So please let us know. Better recruit some more trogs. I agree. So some of the stuff that's happened in the errata, I'm going to read it live. So I'll try and I won't 100% know. Page 55 is Way of the Seraphon, Sage's Staff. At the start of the hero phase, pick one friendly Seraphon wizard. That's not really a big deal. That's fine. That's just a plus to cast, I think. Dracothian Tails one is instead of setting a friendly Dracothian Tail unit on the battlefield, before the battle begins, you can place it up, set it to one side, and say that it's setting up waiting to appear at the commander's or reserve unit. So they hadn't actually written in Dracothian's Tail how reserves worked. They effectively assumed it. Does that make sense? They just left it out. So if you were new, you didn't really know what it was assumed. So that's good. Clarified that. That's great. Dave Fraser says, "Oh, they have released it. Surely, without any public beta testing, they won't have found much or know anything that needs fixing." Yes, that's how that works. So they fixed also, it seems, the Fangs of Sotek, the parting shot. So previously, you were able to stand and shoot even in your own charge phase. They'd written it so that you could stand and shoot as a command ability. So now you can use command ability when an enemy unit ends a charge move within 3 inches of a friendly Fangs of Sotek unit. So when an enemy ends a charge move, so they've clarified that, that's wholly within 18 inches of a hero.
So it's no longer you can just shoot at any point as long as it's the charge phase.
Yes. So they've cleared that up, which is fantastic, because before it was really stupid.
Yes.
Oh,
did they clear up the Ripidactyl's command ability?
That was the next one. They've also cleared that up. Can only benefit this command ability once per phase. So both of those are great. They were clearly things that were going to be fixed.
Yes, that's right.
So that's great. They fixed up some. They did some poor clerical work on the Stegodon damage table, so that's been fixed. They've also described that the Skink Chief has the Stegodon as a mount. So if you give a command trait or an artifact to the Skink Chief, it now won't apply to the Stegodon, which is good. An Engine of the Gods is a single model, is page 95. Skink Priest, Engine of the Gods is commanded by Skink Priest, that's fine. So they've rewritten that. And then Bellwind Vortex changed the second sentence of rules. So one of the things that they haven't cleared up, only Seraphon Wizards with the wounds characteristic of none or less are able to summon, that are not already on a Bellwind Vortex, can attempt this spell. So that's the bound Bellwind Vortex. Okay, hold on. Change the second sentence of the rules text. Only Seraphon Wizards with a wounds characteristic of 9 or less that are not already on a Bellwind Vortex can attempt this spell, which is a bound Bellwind Vortex. I don't know if that means that you can't cast bound and unbound ender spells, but I'm assuming not. I'm not really sure. Maybe they just haven't clarified that.
I think that's obviously just trying to basically say you can't have a Balewind on a Balewind.
Yeah, absolutely. But does that mean I can have a Geminids and a Geminids? When I do the show later, I'll have worked this out. I'm reading it live. But one of the things, like Owen Jackson said in the chat, they haven't done is they haven't fixed the technically unrenderable save on a Bastiladon for a while because of how some really janky maths works. Did you heard about that?
Yeah, and a friend of mine sort of showed me the argument, and as written, it's a bit problematic, isn't it?
Yes. So if you guys are listening and you're like, I'm not sure. Basically, there was an FAQ that allowed things to drop below 0. And when me and Benjamin did a show recently when we talked about bravery debuffing, so being able to make something minus 12 bravery, but it only starts at 4, is a big positive because you can take it lower, which means when you do things that are 2 bravery units, you can hurt them. In this situation, a Bastiladon basically means that you can't. It effectively, until it takes enough wounds, it's unrenderable to a degree. Yeah, because a one is always a fail. Because that's the I'm not getting into it anymore. That's the short and long of it. I can post it up, but it's a bit of a negative that they didn't clarify.
Hang on, it is in the battle. It's in the designer's commentary. Do you want me to go through it here?
Oh,
Rob?
Fantastic! Yes, please. Yeah. That's great. That's great news.
And it also clears up the endless spell, so you cannot take the bound one and a regular one. That is in the designer's commentary.
Great.
And how does the rend characteristic of attacks interact with the Bastillodon while it has a 1+ save characteristic? So the answer they've given, an unmodified save roll of a 1 always fails. When a save roll is modified by the rend characteristic of an attack, it can never be modified to less than 1. When a model has a save characteristic of 1+, modified save rolls of 1 are successfully saved. This means, while the Bastillodon has a save characteristic of 1+, only unmodified save rolls of 1 will inflict damage, regardless of the rend characteristic of the weapon used for the attack.
So he is unrendable.
Yep.
Wow. That's bonkers. I thought that you were about to say that they've clarified it and it's all fine now.
No, they've clarified it and they've said business as usual.
Wow. That is
Carry on.
fucked up. Okay. Oh, that's so bonkers. Because they're already difficult to deal with. They've got a really big range. They're slow. Fair enough. They only move 5, but they've got a 24-inch shot range, so they're 29 inches effective range. So getting to them is difficult anyway. They can shoot twice, and now they're unrendable. Interesting. Okay. But to be fair, you could roll some ones. I guess that could be a thing.
Yep. Always. Yeah. At least they don't have the mortal wound save anymore.
That's true. They also don't have the mortal wound save. That's a really good point. So they are, I think, a little bit more susceptible to being taken out. And also the fact that they've cleared the Underspell situation is great as well. Dexter in the chat saying the reason they changed the wording of the bound Balewind was because pre-FAQ you could put an Oracle on a Troglodon on it. Did not know that. That's great news. That's great news. It's really only from when the FAQ comes out that I start to pay real attention to. But all of those have been cleared. You wouldn't have expected the Bastillodon change, but fine. That's fine. At this stage, who knows what they're deciding to do. There we go. You got any thoughts on it, Adam?
The Bastillodon in particular, or just the regular, the whole FAQ?
Yeah, the whole FAQ, sorry.
No, look, I think it seems to have covered the stuff that I think would come up. I thought it was a great book, actually. I really liked it. A very close friend of mine, he's been a Seraphon player for the last 2 and a bit years, and he loves it.
Yeah.
Reinvigorated him into getting some extra stuff for his army done. Gives him a whole heap of different ways he can play.
So all positives.
And he wasn't. Yeah, big time. Because he wasn't one of those guys that ran a big summoning list. He would take a Thunderquake list with a single Bastillodon, a Stegodon, an Engine of the Gods, and 6 Croxagore. And he'd run that around, and he lost a hell of a lot more games than he won, but it was a beautiful looking army. Well, now all of a sudden, he played another friend of ours that had Flesh Eater Courts, and he wiped the floor with him inside of 2 turns with 2 Bastillodons going pew 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 pew. Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah, I'm really happy with the Seraphon release. I think it's very strong. And so if you are one of those people on the receiving end of that, I apologise. It's going to be super tough to deal with. I mean, you probably won't be on the receiving end of it for several months. It's so sad for the...
And when you are, you'll just be thankful that you can be on the receiving end of it, because you've been in your house for several months.
Yeah. Owen Jackson Owen Jackson in the chat says, I'm so glad these changes have been announced today. It will definitely clear up issues at the club this week. Oh shit, wait. Based in London, more than likely no. Yeah, anyway, good. It seems like a decent-ish FAQ. I'll talk about it more later on the later show. But Adam, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Rob.
Oh man, it's a pleasure. You're a legend, and I'm glad that people will get to chat to you more. I'm really looking forward to hearing the solo project coming out soon. Very much looking forward to that.
Well, considering I'm basically under house arrest, I hope to have a lot of the stuff written probably by early next week, recorded. I'd hope to have the first episode maybe out in a week and a half, 2 weeks.
All right, well, that's fantastic. That's great. So as soon as that happens, I'll let everyone know. So that'll be really, really cool. Looking forward to it.
Sure, man.
Yeah, and thank you. And if you guys have joined us live, don't forget we are live every single day from midday during the stream street, during the Hunker and the Bunker sessions. So thanks for joining us. Also, if you are watching us live or even listening to us as a recording, don't forget we're live on Monday talking Age of Sigmar. Me and Nathan later are going to be going through all the sub factions. So we're going to talk about the factions of the sub factions and just kind of like do a review, not a review. I don't think that's quite right. Kind of like rediscuss them a little bit in the current times and remind ourselves of what they are. So that'll be really fun. So join us for that. Nathan will be also phoning in, so probably it will be a clusterfuck of technical issues, which is going to be really fun. Which I'll enjoy. Thank you to everyone who listens live on the podcast, and thank you to everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon. You guys are great. We'll see you later. Adam, you got any final thoughts for the show?
No, I feel I've well and truly said my share. Thank you for a wonderful evening talking Warhammers with you and with the chat.
Oh, what a lovely man. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.